Okay, thank you all for being here today. We have a number of people you're going to hear from today, and I want to thank them for being here. We have the mayor of the city of Rochester, Malik Evans, is here. Jamie Saunders, the Chief Impact Officer of the United Way. Carmen Peluso, the Superintendent of the Rochester City School District. Angie Perez Delgado, the CEO of Ibero. Lori Van Auken from Catholic Charities, and Beatrice LeBron from the Father Tracy Center. I want to thank all of the organizations who are represented here in this room and behind me for their partnership and dedication to making this announcement today, and for working together for the health and safety of our residents and those who have been relocated here last night. Last night, New York City relocated 77 asylum seekers to Monroe County to be housed at a Rochester hotel. The asylees include families with children. And it's important to remember that the families who arrived here last night are seeking asylum in the United States. Asylum is a form of protection granted to migrants fleeing persecution in their home countries. These families have been lawfully admitted into the United States, and they are permitted to remain here while their asylum application is pending. Prior to their arrival, and pursuant to my May 23, 2023 executive order, the hotel where these individuals will be staying filed an emergency housing plan and received approval from the Monroe County Department of Human Services. The executive order was put in place to ensure that any asylum seekers brought here would have their housing, medical, and personal needs addressed and planned for. Our goal was to avoid a chaotic scramble for services and to respect the dignity of those individuals lawfully awaiting resolution of their asylum claims. The individuals that arrived in Monroe County last night did so with identified sources of food, shelter, medical, and personal needs, all funded by New York City. Unlike other areas of the state that are engaging in unconstitutional bans in an attempt to block the relocation of asylum seekers, my executive order sought to establish a planning process and funding mechanism that would guarantee protections to both asylees and to Monroe County residents. As a result, unlike other areas that experienced asylum seekers arriving amid uncertainty and frustration, Monroe County is able to welcome the asylees after a reasonable and rational planning process. We were able to achieve this thanks to ongoing coordination with the mayor's office in New York City, their contractor DACO, and the local hotel, and with the tremendous support from the local community-based organizations, some of which you see here behind me. The emergency housing plan that was approved by the Monroe County Department of Human Services will be reviewed every 30 days for compliance. Again, the plan ensures that adequate housing has been arranged for the duration of the asylee stay in Monroe County, that adequate meals are provided, and that security and other essential needs and services, including medical needs, are provided for with New York City's funding. Both the county and DACO have been in contact with Monroe County businesses and community-based organizations with the intent to contract locally for necessities such as food, security, and other support services. Many of the community-based organizations joining me today will be critical in ensuring that the process is as smooth as possible for both the asylees and to the greater community. And I'm grateful for all of their work and their partnership. It's important to remember, the vast majority of people who call our community home has its family's roots from someplace else. The asylum seekers came to our country for safety and to pursue the American dream, much like all of our ancestors. And their American dream was linked to a job and the opportunity to work for a better future for themselves and for their families. But unfortunately, the asylees that just arrived in our community, federal law stands in the way of them working, and that needs to change. To that end, I've had conversations with both Congressman Morelli and the New York State Association of Counties about how best we can all work together to advocate for streamlining the work visa process to also include a work requirement in the asylum application process. I'm going to have more details in the coming days to talk about how we're going to do that. But before we take your questions, I'm going to invite some additional speakers to come forward. First, I'd like to introduce the mayor of the city of Rochester, Malik Evans, to the podium to offer some remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. County Executive, and I'll be brief. Thank you for your leadership in terms of the coordination of this. I want to be clear about something as it relates to local government. And many of you that are here, you cover places where they get to wax philosophical about what it is they want to do. Some of you get to do that in your jobs. We don't get to do that. We have things that are delivered to our doorstep that we don't create, challenges that we don't ask for, but as local government, we have to deal with it. Be it something like this, asylum seekers that are here, or another issue that the federal government is working on trying to fix somewhere in Washington where it takes them a long time to sometimes solve a problem. We don't have time to sit around and figure things out. So the county executive and the folks that you see standing behind you, school district, these organizations, when we got word that there are an influx of migrants that are being bused to cities around the country, and they are landing on our doorsteps, we have to do the humane thing. And the humane thing is to meet the moment. But I want to be clear. As the county executive said, we're meeting the moment. But we have every expectation that what we were promised will be delivered. Promises made have to be promises kept. So we expect the food to be paid for. We expect the transportation to be paid for, the security to be paid for. We expect all those things to be paid for. And if they're not, we will have further conversations going forward. But we also understand that when we have kids that are coming to this country who only want a better life, we are going to do everything in our power to make sure that those kids can have that better life. And I think that's why you see the school superintendent here and many of the community-based organizations. Mothers with children who are fleeing horrible situations that none of us don't even have a frame of reference for. And we will meet that moment. But those moments will be met with the promises that were made. They darn sure better be kept. And I will support the county executive in terms of making sure that all the promises that were made were kept. But beyond this, we also have to understand that there's a human element here. That I was raised with, put yourself in someone else's shoes. So I would ask the community to put yourself in the shoes of individuals that are fleeing horrific situations. And how would you like to want to be treated? And I think that Rochester has a track record. The organizations behind us, I see Catholic Charities, they were called Catholic Family Centers before. I spent 12 years on their board. So I'm very familiar with the process. Barrow American Action League, I've been around at Barrow probably almost all of my adult life. These organizations that are behind us know how to handle these situations. But they're non-profit organizations. So they're going to need the support of the various levels of government, i.e. federal government, to make sure that they take care of those promises that were kept. This is something that I think illustrates, again, how local governments are on the front line. We're on the front line. We're on the vanguard to solve problems that, sadly, other levels of government are just having problem solving. And I think that the county executive and all of our partners that are here, we will prove that we're up to that challenge. However, that challenge comes with limits. And the limits are the resources. Period. So if this was Pee Wee's Playhouse, and there was a word of the day, and everybody would scream every time you heard the word is resources. The County of Monroe, the City of Rochester, these nonprofit organizations does not have a bottomless pit of resources. So my message to New York City, which I know that I've spoken to the mayor and I know the county executive as well, that we expect those resources to follow, but more importantly, the making of this, where the dollars are, the only place they can print money is Washington, D.C. And we expect those resources to follow those families if we are to be able to perform to optimal quality, to the best of our ability. We need to make sure that those resources follow those families, because those kids who did not ask to come here, little kids who will be sitting in the city school district come September, they deserve those resources. Thank you. And I'm sorry, I got to give her a proper introduction. Coming up next is Jamie Saunders, Chief Impact CEO, they had her as Chief Impact Officer. Who's taking over? Chief Executive Officer of the United Way of Greater Rochester.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, County Executive. And thank you for all being here today to meet the moment, because that's what this is. At United Way, our job is to mobilize resources and relationships so everyone can thrive. And that is what this moment is calling for all of us. It is incredible to see and to know that our partners, many behind us and many more, were there. They've been up all night. There's the best laid plans, and then there is what shows up on your doorstep. So we are grateful for the incredible planning and foresight, but planning can only go so far. There is a humanitarian crisis that we're facing, and I have utmost confidence in the partnership of government, of our nonprofit organizations on the front lines, and our private citizens and corporations who can meet this moment. There is a role for you. And absolutely, the local governments are working with our federal partners. Resources shall be coming, and right now we have immediate needs. Our immediate needs are our nonprofit partners do not have extra resources to meet this moment. We encourage you to support them. If you are so moved to volunteer and support, as we are working on hygiene kits, we're working on emergency food, we're working for diapers, we're looking for all the things you can imagine that families, when they come with nothing, are in need of. We are looking for time, and that is what we need in this moment to supply all the supports needed for these families as they relocate, so we have time for the further planning. I want to acknowledge Commissioner Wright and her team at Department of Human Services. They have been living and breathing this. This is heart work. It is really about heart. It is about humanity. And I want to echo the mayor that word of the day is resources. So if you are so moved to support and dig into the humanity, you may have questions about how this happened, why this happened, what it all means in a policy standpoint. The reality is we have families here. We have babies here. We have needs right now. If you so choose, food donations can be received at FoodLink. You can volunteer. You can go to United Way at unitedwayrockflx.org. You can donate and designate. Our job is to help fuel the incredible network of CBOs, community-based organizations, that are meeting this moment. There is a need. Public resources can go so far. We also have needs that we can fill in the gaps, and there is a need for you. So please join us, join in this moment, dig deep into the humanity that we all know, and we have demonstrated before that when we come together as a community, we do set the bar. We are different. Monroe County can meet this moment, and we can meet this moment as a community. To share how we will meet this moment are our dear partners at the Rochester City School District. Please join me in welcoming the Superintendent Peluso.
Good morning. So I first want to thank County Exec Bello and the Mayor for bringing us to the table right away to begin some planning for our families and our students. So just to give you a little sense of what we're doing in Rochester City School District, we understand that the challenges that our new incoming families face, and we want to create an environment that provides a compassionate welcome and recognizes the importance of creating a safe haven where everyone can thrive. We have a team that is meeting with families within the next hour to make sure that they are getting what is needed. We have this team that assembled a dedicated team of educators, counselors, and support staff to assist our new families during their transition to the district. We have streamlined assessment and enrollment. A smooth and efficient enrollment process is crucial for seamless integration into our educational system. We have our language access and interpretation team. That should never be a barrier to education. We've established a comprehensive language and interpretation service to ensure all students have equal access to a high-quality education. We're making sure that we have transportation assistance. We have solutions to ensure new students can attend class without any hindrance. Our goal is to make education accessible regardless of any of the logistical barriers that we're facing. And then most importantly, what has been said many times today is our community partnerships. Welcoming our new families is not just a responsibility of the school district, it involves the entire community. We will continue to collaborate with our local organizations, nonprofits, and governmental agencies to create a comprehensive support network that addresses the various needs of our newcomers. We believe the RCSD's greatest attribute is the diversity of our students and families, and we're excited to welcome and support these new families into our district. Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Angie Perez Delgado from Ibero.
Thank you, everyone. So I know we talk about welcoming these families that arrived yesterday. Personally, for me, those were our tias, our abuelas, our cousins. It brought a lot of memories about our own immigration story and, you know, the suffering of our people. But one thing that brought comfort to my heart is that I stand with some very strong community partners who have done this before. So this is not the first time that this community has welcomed a large influx of people. We did this for Hurricane Maria. We've done it before, and we've pulled together, and there was nothing more rewarding than to be there in the middle of the night with Commissioner Wright, digging through boxes, with Beatriz Lebrun, you know, taking a list of chargers that she has to deliver so that people can charge their cell phones so they can communicate with their families. So we've been preparing for this. We're ready for this. This community has done this before, and I have a lot of faith that they will not fail us. This is a very personal situation for Ibero. Like I said, we saw the faces of our own family members and the great need and the great suffering that they've experienced to come here and get a small glimpse of the American dream. And at Ibero, we stand ready to support, we stand ready to utilize our resources, but most importantly, we stand ready to leverage our brand and the influence that our brand has, and to call everyone to the table to be able to serve these people in a way that is humane and full of dignity. It is really important that these people feel welcomed, and that was the message that they received last night, and I'm very proud that all of our partners came together and wrapped around this very dear need. We know that immigrants are the fuel of our great nation. Many of the luxuries that we take advantage of as Americans, the food we eat, the clothes we wear, many of the frontline services are really because of the sweat of the back of these people that come here seeking this dream. So I am reassured that none of our partners will fail us, and that we will integrate these people into our community, and we will do with them the same thing we did when we welcomed the new arrivals from Puerto Rico. And I'm excited for these families and the future that we're going to be able to provide to them. So look forward to working with everyone and getting that work done. Thank you. And next, we bring our partners from Catholic Charities, Lori Barnhatten, CEO.
Thank you so much. So great to see all of you here today. You know, Catholic Charities has been working with refugees, asylum seekers, immigrants for many, many years. So while this is in our wheelhouse, I will say that there is nothing more humbling than when you pick somebody up from the airport and all they have are clothes on their back. They are frightened, they are scared, they are relieved, and they are traumatized. I cannot thank the county and the city enough, and our partners standing behind me and so many others who have been in the planning sessions, for being deliberate and planful about greeting the folks that arrived last night. It is truly a privilege to serve. They are our employees later on once they receive immigration status. They are people who contribute to our community in so many ways. Catholic Charities, after food, clothing, and shelter are stabilized, are happy to help out with our language services, with our legal services, with additional case management services, and look forward to our continued partnership. So thank you so much for being here today. And I'd like to introduce Beatriz Lebrun, from the CEO from Father Tracy.
So I also want to thank the rapid response team who was also on site helping us with the initial welcome and the assessments last night. And I also want to stress that these families are scared, and it is a scary thing to transition. I moved here myself years ago as a transplant, as a young mom with a baby, and I was very scared. I didn't know Rochester, I didn't know this community. And so for me, I feel like my biggest role is uplifting Father Tracy's legacy of love, dignity, and respect for all people and the humanity in this. So I want to echo the sentiments of everyone shared here today, is that this is a humanity issue, and that it doesn't matter what their status is. that status has been created by society, and it's a falsehood to create division. And the reality is that we are all human beings trying to figure out this thing called life. And so I'm very honored to work with everyone here in supporting and welcoming these families. Obviously, I play a dual role for many of you who know me, and so I'll get to work with these families on the front lines, but also welcome their children into the district and at least go out and visit them in the schools, and so making those connections. And so I just want to thank all of the partners and all of the folks who you may not see here today who are just as actively and working as hard to incorporate these individuals into our community with love, dignity, and respect. And with that, I'm going to call County Executive Bello back up. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Beatrice. And again, I want to thank all our partners who are here today who spoke. I also neglected to acknowledge members of my team who are up here as well. My county attorney, John Bringawat. Thalia Wright is the Commissioner of the Department of Human Services, and we have Dr. Mendoza, the Monroe County Health Director as well, all of whom have been involved in making today's announcement possible. So with that, we could take any questions that the media might have. And anyone up here? How this came together over the last few weeks and then last time? Sure. So if you recall back in May, when New York City began relocating asylum seekers around different parts of the state, I issued an executive order, and it was a unique executive order to a lot of other places of the state. It did not call for what I view as what courts have ruled are unconstitutional bans of asylum seekers, but instead took a reasonable common sense approach of trying to create a process around it that protects both Monroe County and protects the asylum seekers. And that executive order required that a plan be submitted by a hotel, because New York City was contracting directly with hotels for the relocation. It required that the hotel file a plan with the county to let us know where or who's providing the food, the security, the basic necessities, who's providing all those services, and who's paying for those services for those individuals that they're relocating. So over the last several months, we had conversations with New York City to let them know. I've talked directly to the mayor of New York City to let him know that our expectation is that the emergency order would be followed, and that New York City would be responsible for paying for those services. Over the last several weeks, those conversations had been ongoing. Last Friday, the plan that was acceptable to the county was submitted, and we were notified last night that late yesterday afternoon that in fact there was a bus of asylees who were being relocated here.
Can you kind of run down the details of the arrangement? You said it's 70-70. Some of them are going to be students. What was the breakdown of men, women, children? And
Yep.
what's the length of the contract? And do you expect more?
Yeah, so I'll answer a couple of those questions and I'll pass it off. So in terms of the breakdown, I know there's been some media reports of what the breakdown is. New York City, at least as before the press conference started, had not actually officially given us the breakdown, so I don't want to give you what we think we know from there and have it be inaccurate. So we'll get that to you as soon and be able to confirm that as soon as New York City gives that to us. We do know there were 77 individuals. Obviously, as you heard from Angie, there were people there greeting them last night. In terms of additional people, I would fully expect over the next several weeks or months that that's possible. The plan that was approved did have additional rooms embedded in that plan, so I would expect that there would be more. Mm-hmm.
Is in terms of more asylees are there additional hotels that are submitted plans? And is that
No, this is the only hotel that has submitted a plan so far. We do. I don't want to confirm that for you without it being confirmed first from New York City, so we'll give that to you as soon as they give us a confirmation of that. Yeah.
Executive, I want to kind of preface this. I firmly believe everyone needs a helping hand, but we've heard since May 23rd that emergency housing is short. Emergency housing
That's right.
is short. So how do we plan on accommodating more migrants?
Yeah, so, well, that's why the emergency order was in place, was to make sure that this was done in a responsible way and that those beds did exist and that the resources did exist and that we knew who was paying for it, right? And so that's what happened in this situation. New York City is doing what they did across the state. They're calling hotels, they're using their contractor to call hotels and to secure rooms. What we said was because of the housing shortage that exists here and the resource shortage that exists here, right, to do this, we required them to file a plan with us to let us know where are people going and who's paying, what services are being provided and who's paying for it, so that it doesn't fall onto Monroe County, who already has limited resource and access to housing. So it doesn't fall on us to find housing and come up with those resources, but New York City would do that.
Is this hotel someplace that the commissioner uses typically for placement?
Do you want to? I'll have you answer that. But
I mean, we were all concerned all last week about limited availability.
Absolutely. Yes. So just to confirm, as a follow-up of last week, thank you so much. We were so blessed to relocate the 50-plus families, right, that we had at Motel 6 in record speed. So all the families were either offered an alternative placement or placed in an alternative placement. We have an array of providers that we contract with emergency housing beds. Catholic Charities, who's here with us today, is one of our great partners there. What we usually do when we have overflow is utilize hotels. I will say that the majority of the families that we've been struggling with have been large family groups. So unfortunately, we kind of do the same thing where we kind of look through the county and see which hotel partners are willing to give us hotel beds. During during our experience with what we encountered with Motel 6, we were very blessed with the county exec and our county real estate to really reach out to different hotel providers who is in the process right now of securing us what we call block rooms. So there will be no shuffling. We'll have designated hotel space as overflow in addition to the numerous contracts we already have for emergency housing placements.
What hotel is it?
I'll answer that. It's the Holiday Inn on State Street.
And where did you said that these people were bused in last night, 'cause there was a reference earlier to an airport, but we're talking about.
Yeah, it was there. Yeah, there was.
And
there were 2 buses that arrived last night.
When did they arrive precisely, and to where?
To the Holiday Inn on State Street, and they arrived, I think, around 10:30 at night. Yep.
Was anyone here personally there to?
Me, Angie, Dahlia, Dr. Mendoza was there treating children. Let me just fill that out and shout out to Dr. Mendoza who's fluent.
Yeah. Yeah.
How long have the people been in the country, and do we know where they entered?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have the confirmation to be able to share with you that right now, unless you guys do, but I do not.
There's a little bit of folks from everywhere.
Yep.
So Guatemala, there's just very diverse.
Yep.
So is it the position of the county and the city that however many asylum seekers end up arriving here, that it should not cost an additional dollar to any branch of local government?
New York City, under the executive order, New York City is required to fund the relocation of asylum seekers here. This is not something that should have fallen to Monroe County or Monroe County taxpayers. And New York City has agreed to do that. And I know that New York State, as part of the budget this year, has put dollars aside for New York City to help them with that expense. And New York City, I believe, too, I can let the lawyers speak to this, too, they're required to pay for this under their own laws and consent decrees that they're responsible for fulfilling.
So Eric Adams has been very clear that they also feel like they don't have the resources.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Can you describe what those conversations were like and what the sort of ultimate solution is in your view?
The ultimate solution here is there's got to be a greater coordination and responsibility from the federal government. I mean, think about how this happened, right? You have people seeking asylum that come through across the border. They're seeking asylum. They're down in border states, and you saw this play out in the state of Texas. It becomes there's too many people there for them to offer the type of services they need. They're moving people, relocating them all over the country in a disorganized way. They're ending up in New York City, and now New York City is becoming overwhelmed by the number of people there. And again, because of that lack of coordination, they're now relocating people to where they can relocate them. This is, in my view, an abject failure of the federal government to provide for the coordination to make this, to get this done in a way that is responsible for both the country, the states and localities, as well as the asylum seekers.
Jimmy mentioned immediate needs right now,
Yeah.
care packages and things like that. So I'm assuming they've come with just the clothes on their back. You are all tasked with caring for them essentially until that money and funding comes through.
Well, I'll let them speak to what they're going to provide, but I will say this. So we have signed off on a plan, and they have contracted with local agencies to be able to provide for all of those things. What the individuals up here are doing is a couple things. Like Jamie Saunders had mentioned, we know people in our community want to help, and they want to come forward and be part of the solution here. So we're giving the community a way to do that. Our nonprofit partners, though, understand that gaps could exist. Right? We know what the contracts are supposed to be. And just like the mayor said, we're going to hold New York City feet to the fire on what those contracts are and make sure that those are fulfilled. But we also can't just take a chance. These are human beings that deserve to be treated with dignity, and they need they need to have these services. They need to have these supplies. So the nonprofits, you saw Angie speak before, were there last night to make sure that these individuals had those supplies that they needed to be able to cover initially any gaps, and then gaps that we find, we will go back to New York City and make sure that they uphold their end of the bargain and that they close those gaps.
Much like Monroe County,
Yeah.
my understanding is that this issue arrived on New York City's doorstep.
It did.
It didn't necessarily originate there. Most likely, without
Well, that's-
the origins, I suspect that most of the people in question here
Yep.
arrived over the southern border. Is there
Yeah.
anything, this might be a far-flung question, but
It's okay.
is there anything that Monroe County can do to compel other localities or the federal government to pay the resources? This isn't New York City's, the problem didn't originate in New York City.
See, that's why I call this.
Why not compel Texas, or why not
Well, that's why I'm saying, like, well, we have, right, I'll answer it this way. A little bit, but that's all, but you're not, in the sense, that's why I blame the federal government for this, honestly, because at the end of the day, this isn't a problem of, say, Texas is making. It wasn't a problem of New York City's making. And the relocation of asylum seekers isn't something Monroe County did. It's not something the city of Rochester did. So what we're trying to do, and what our goal is to create process, to create order, and to create a sense of dignity and respect for people. These are human beings. What I said back in May, when I first issued my executive order, was what we are not going to do is be a community where buses of people are just coming here in the middle of the night and being dropped off in a parking lot with people who don't know where they are, why they're here, and who's taking care of them. That is not going to happen in Monroe County. And then have Monroe County have to step in and pick up all the pieces. That's not going to happen here. So we did an executive order that created a reasonable, rational process around how this would happen, so it protects both the asylees and it protects Monroe County. Yep.
Thank you. So the number I got, what the county executive was saying, was from the New York Immigration Coalition from Albany. So they said 30 kids were brought here. Is the school district able to handle that, and the more amount of kids that come in? Will we be able to handle that with, teacher shortages nationwide?
Yeah, we're going to continue to assess, right? We're going to offer services. Currently we have available seats, right, and programming to absorb this. But we're going to continue to have to assess, right? There may be a breaking point where we need to hire more teachers and more staff. And we do know that bilingual education is a tough field to do. But we have E&L teachers. We have other ways to provide support. We provide support maybe through bilingual teacher assistants, right? We'll brainstorm how to approach it. But we have the ability right now. We'll language assess. We'll figure out. We have bilingual programmings. We have the Rochester International Academy. We have a lot of supports that we can put in place.
Angie, you were there last night. Can you kind of walk us through what you were hearing from these people about what their journey has been like?
Yeah.
until now?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to meet a family who had 4 small children, probably all below the age of 4. One of them was 3 months old. She told me a story about how she came from Venezuela, actually gave birth in the middle of her journey and crossed the border into Texas with stitches. She had a very small baby. We all got to hold babies. And came home. They were very scared. They thought, they weren't sure where they don't know where they're at. They don't know the proximity of New York State, right? So when you drive 8 hours on a bus, they're like, where are we? Are we in another state? And I'm like, no, we're in New York. It was very emotional. They were tired, but mainly just scared for their safety. We had a family share with us. They thought their kids were going to be kidnapped because, So, there's a lot of experiences that we are trying to support. So our goal that day, and there's a coalition that's working, and there's some great organizations that are not here that are really the boots on the ground folks that have gathered the rest of us. And we've actually been meeting for months because our whole point was to say, welcome, right? We are here. We are going to advocate for you. We are going to make sure that your treatment is humane. We're going to make sure that our partners are aligning. So we were very proud of the rapid response team. They have been putting welcoming baskets together. What I will also say is that at national level, we are affiliates of Unidos US, which is the Council of La Raza, which is the largest advocacy Latino agency. So this is a conversation that we've been having as a council with Unidos US for over a year. So when we talk to our partners in Texas, there's actually a small group of us, of leaders that meet across the nation every month to talk about this. We've learned from their experiences, and they're completely overwhelmed as well. I had the unfortunate, I was at a conference over the weekend where I had another CEO tell me a story about their daily task. Their daily task was walking the border to make sure that they grab dead bodies before they decompose and are not identifiable. That's the work that these non-for-profits across the nation, without resources, without support, are leading. So I'm very blessed. I will not complain. I will not sit here and feel bad because all I get to do is bring Pampers, hold babies, feed them, and find them housing. I don't get to walk that border. That is not my job. So when we talk about our other partners and sending it back to Texas, this is not a Texas problem. This is not any state problem. This is an American problem about how we treat immigrants in our country and the humanity that we rip away from people. And for me, that's where I anchored myself last night because my task was simple. Feed babies, give them bananas, give them fruits, talk to families. Beatriz is gathering a list of chargers that people needed, connect them to Wi-Fi, show them how to use the elevator with a card, show them how to use the microwave, show them how to use the Keurig. I didn't get to walk the border and identify dead bodies. I didn't get to go into the river and pull people who were stuck in wires that were set under the water. So for me, I'm proud of my partners. I'm proud of the response that we're giving, and that is where I'm going to anchor myself and every resource that Ibero has every day until we figure out how we're going to effectively serve these people.
All right, thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you.